Hello, I'm the Irish guy, and yes, okay, it is tradition on this channel. Today, I am going to take a look at one footballer from every age between 18 and 40 who had the absolute worst 2024. Cheer up, lads. It can only get better. Surely. Right, let's go. 18, Lewis Miley. Look, I realize that Lewis Miley is still a child, but I would imagine that this poor kid, after enduring the most frustrating year of his short little life, he is probably right now sulking in the corner of his bedroom, refusing to even touch his X-Men toys. Ozzy, this technically superb midfielder, was probably too cross to even write himself a letter to Santa Claus. I'm guessing his exasperated mum was probably ringing around psychiatrists and moaning to them that her son spends every afternoon throwing shepherd's pie at the wall. Because lads, 2023 was a dream year for the kid. Not only was he making his debut for his beloved Newcastle, but he had broken into the first team. He was starting epic Champions League nights against PSG and AC Milan. He was playing 17 Premier League matches in a row, even scoring his first goal for the club in December, something Elliott Anderson never did. Look, 2024 actually began pretty well for Miley too. Again, he played every possible game for the club in January and February. The kid was probably counting his lucky stars that Sandro Tonali was addicted to his phone, but then Miley smashes up his back in March, is out for the rest of the season, then fractures his foot in pre-season. He finally returns to fitness in October, but that just coincided with the return of Tonali, and as a result, he has played 11 minutes since. 11 minutes of football since March. I mean, for somebody who's drinking in Champions League nights, so now what, just eating chewing gum on the bench? It must be like someone winning the X Factor, getting into Christmas #1, and yet 12 months later, they're wiping down toilets in Burger King. Poor Miley. 19, David Washington. This is a humiliating year for David Washington. Imagine you spent your entire childhood being talked up as this generational beast, seen as a little golden nugget in the Gremio Academy. You then moved to Santos, and at the age of 16, you were signing your first pro deal with a $100 million release clause. You then get a blockbuster move to Chelsea, and yet they don't let you play, except for 2 minutes against Everton in the spring, when the team was already 6-0 up. How patronizing can you get? That's a bit like your dad teaching you how to drive, but he only actually lets you touch the steering wheel once it's parked. Washington was almost sold to Strasbourg in the summer for £18 million, but that deal was cancelled after Chelsea were scared that the whole deal would get investigated, as the transfer would look dodgier than a Jermaine Genius text. But again, he's just been left in limbo. The poor kid wasn't even included in the Conference League squad. Come on, he's a Brazil under-20 international, and yet you don't think he's good enough to even sit on the bench against teams from Armenia and Ireland? 20, Evan Ferguson. Yeah, I don't want to dwell on this one too long, but yeah. In 2023, Evan Ferguson looked like a future Ballon d'Or winner. Come on, smashing in a Premier League hat-trick at 18? If you had told me this guy would register just one Premier League strike in 2024 against Wolves in October, I would think you would just eaten a poisoned cookie. But no, he's had a rotten year, and he can't buy himself a Brighton start. Fabian Herzler has given him just 2 Premier League starts all season, and he's currently about to get farmed out on loan. Yes, this is someone who looks like he had a future Ballon d'Or written all over his head, but I mean, can you blame me? The lad was playing against Chelsea at 14. When I was 14, I was too self-conscious to watch Superbad with my mum. 21, Harvey Elliott. Look, there's probably other 21-year-olds out there who have had a worse 2024 than Harvey Elliott, but, I think this man must be heavily frustrated. Let's be real. His Liverpool career has never really taken off, and he's been there for close to 6 years now. Look, the guy got plenty of action in the second half of last season, playing every week, but he didn't really start too many games until the title bid was dead. And he probably also thought that Jurgen Klopp was wasting his time, because a bunch of his appearances were just standing in for Mo Salah on the right wing. Sorry, I'm sure this kid wants to be trying to cement himself as a central midfielder. Asking him to audition on the right wing, standing in for arguably the best player on the planet, pointless. And yeah, he started the last 4 games of the season and did really well. 1 goal and 3 assists in his last 3 matches. Surely this is his chance to kick on under a new manager and establish himself as a Liverpool midfield beast. Nah, he then breaks his foot, but he's been fit for a few months now. Well, I mean, forget about any starts. The guy doesn't get more than a 15-minute cameo under Arne Slot. Oh yeah, and also, don't forget back in March, his goal at Old Trafford in the FA Cup should have been the winner. But now, you threw it all away. 22, Ansu Fati. Ansu Fati's career is a big, fat, huge dumpster fire. And that's coming from me. I'm sorry, but I can't be the only one who thinks that Euro 2024 must have crushed this man's soul, because he was supposed to be the generational next Messi megastar at Barcelona. He was breaking into the team at 16, but now, after an awful flop year on Brighton's bench, where he was so disappointing, even the local seagulls thought they were too good to poo in his lawn. Honestly, lads, when Brighton beat Spurs to the signing of Fati at Brighton looked like Tevez at West Ham. Lads, things were so bad that he crammed in just 41 minutes into the final 10 games of the season. awful. And yes, he was powerlessly forced to watch his Barcelona and Spain replacement Lamine Yamal tear Euro 2024 to shreds. Being the best player as Spain won the whole thing, whilst poor old Ansu was sitting at home weeping into a bag of chips and was probably too embarrassed to return to Barcelona in pre-season. To be fair, he's been given more minutes than I thought, and he even actually started the match against Sevilla, but nah, more injuries have eaten the season like a Twix. 23, Issa Kabore. It feels like a lifetime ago, but at the start of last season, Issa Kabore was seen as a top-class, exciting, up-and-coming right-back at Man City. He gets a Premier League loan to Luton, but after returning from a pretty rubbish African Cup of Nations with Burkina Faso in the spring, he partakes in a dreadful defence, as they conceded 23 goals in the 9 games he played, with his rock-bottom moment being part of the defence who, yeah, while at Bournemouth, they were 3-0 up and still lost. That collapse killed their morale and season, but he still gets rewarded with an exciting move to Benfica on loan, where he was given 11 league minutes in 3 months. Things were so bad, he's now escaped to Werder Bremen on loan, but overall, this right wing back has had a pretty yuck year. 24, Max Aarons. What on earth has happened to Max Aarons? It was only a few years ago this homegrown Norwich City right back was actually in talks about joining Barcelona on loan. He also had Bayern Munich squeezing themselves into his DMs, and yet now at just 24, he is a Bournemouth outcast, barely seen all year long. And lads, he's been fit ever since he returned from a wonky hamstring injury in March. Tony Iriola has not wanted to know him, leaving a potential Barcelona defender out in the cold in favour of an aging Adam Smith, someone who's been at the club 10 years, and honestly is about as exciting as that tissue that's been behind your TV for yonks. Iriola recently chose to put forgotten centre-back James Hill in a right-back over Aarons, and I don't know why. 25, Mason Mount. Obviously, who else? Mason Mount. Champions League winner Mason Mount is halfway to 50 and yet had such a frighteningly nightmare 2024. Everything he could have hoped that would happen to him following a mega money move to Manchester United, the opposite has happened. I mean, his 2024 started well enough, I suppose, scoring in his first match of the year, a last-minute winner against Brentford, except no. Despite him putting Man United 1-0 up after 90 minutes, they still couldn't see out the win, and has been downhill since. His only start in the second half of the season was an embarrassing 4-0 defeat at Crystal Palace. He started just 3 Premier League matches this season, 2 of them defeats. He hasn't completed a 90-minute match all year long, and yeah, his England career is an absolute tatters. He's at such a stage now where his best buddy Declan Rice has left him behind, and is probably now too cool to even respond to his texts. 26, Ben Godfrey. If you think it's too good to be true, then it probably is. Look, Ben Godfrey actually had a decent first half of 2024. After being completely ignored by Sean Dyche in 2023, he actually broke into the Toffees team as right back in January, and he even took part in a famous win over Liverpool, and then he gets himself a dream move to Atalanta, the Europa League champions. But it's been a disaster. The guy played 22 minutes in Serie A on the opening day, and none since. Look, the guy featured in the UEFA Super Cup against Real Madrid in August, and he probably thought, yeah, I've made it. I'm at a top club now, and will be able to test myself against some elite, historic mega clubs. No, this must have been sickeningly frustrating. And yeah, his Italian dream has been cancelled early, and he's now just on loan at Ipswich instead. 27, Marcus Rashford. Marcus Rashford has had the worst year of his life. Obviously, not only did he have half the planet freaking out because he phoned in sick to work, but yeah, just 8 Premier League goals all year. His sloppy, sluggish form culminated in the guy getting cut from matchday squads by Ruben Amorim, and just like Jadon Sancho, he is the latest high-profile mega money English star about to get booted out on loan. And oh yeah, he was left out of England's Euro 2024 squad too. I mean, considering his missed penalty was responsible for them losing the last Euros on home soil, then the fact he wasn't given a chance to redeem himself under Southgate, surely that must have stung worse than kissing a bubble bee. 28, Ben Chilwell. Ben Chilwell is a £50 million Champions League winning left back, and with Luke Shaw out injured for pretty much the entire year, then naturally this should have been the year where he established himself as England's first choice left back. Instead, the bloke didn't even make the Euro squad, which is humiliating to the extreme. Look, injuries sort of ruined last season for him, but the worst was yet to come. Enzo Maresca leaving him in the reserves for months, not even included in the Conference League squad, which is such an insult for someone who, yeah, costs 50% of £100 million. Bear in mind, this guy is Chelsea's second highest best paid player on £200,000 a week, so he's not deemed good enough to share a pitch against the likes of Shamrock Rovers and Noah, and yet the club still pay him £10 million a year. He had a potential loan move to Manchester United collapse, really just being the second coming of Sergio Reguilon, a really pointless, forgettable, brief loanee, but yeah, at the minute, he doesn't even have any takers in January. Awful. 29, Jack Grealish. 0 goals in 2024. All year. Lads, I said Chilwell cost half of £100 million, right? Grealish cost the full 100 mil. No goals all year. He's been replaced on the left wing by Savinho, with Pep Guardiola practically calling him out in the media, effectively saying that Grealish has been asleep ever since they won the treble. Left out of England's Euro 2024 squad too, which again, for the 7th most expensive player of all time, is terrible. 30, Raheem Sterling. Oh, it's poor. Very, very poor. Look, Raheem Sterling lost his place in Pochettino's Chelsea team just around the time they rescued their season in the spring with an upturn in form. He then gets the cold shoulder from Maresca, immediately moans about it in the media, gets banished to Arsenal on loan, where they've now realised he's a dried up chunk of salmon because he can't buy a game for the Gunners either. Look, I know he's had a knock over Christmas, but still, Arteta is clearly unimpressed by what modern day Sterling now is. 31, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. Yeah, I bet you forgot Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain even existed, and I don't blame you. The fact this former Arsenal and Liverpool midfielder is only 31, it is actually shocking. This guy is younger than KSI. Let that sink in for a second, because it feels like he must be a 40-year-old potato by now, right? His move to Besiktas has been a complete waste of everybody's time. A torn thigh muscle destroyed the second half of last season, and so far this time out, he's been left out of the Europa League squad, which is frighteningly embarrassing, and he's only started one league match so far this season. And even that was when he was dragged off at halftime in a defeat against Adana Demirspor. I mean, after the failed Dele Alli experiment, when are Besiktas going to stop signing these former England international stars when their careers are now drenched in a cup of sour milk? 32, Sadio Mane. Look, it seems kind of weird to stick Sadio Mane in here, because you're probably all assuming that a man of his supreme talents is eating the Saudi Pro League on toast. Yeah, not really. Look, when he first joined Al Nassr, then yeah, it was all easy for him. Goals every week from the left wing, but so far in 2024, he's only actually scored in 6 of his 27 league matches. Come on, this is someone who's a world-class beast on his day. Surely at just 32, he should be eating this league with a spoon. But now his goal return has been pretty weak. 33, Andros Townsend. Look, Andros Townsend's 2024 has been horrible. Don't forget, Luton Town began the year by thumping Brighton 4-0 in January. So the fact their form absolutely fell off a cliff, losing nearly every single match after that was horrific. Townsend quietly slinks off to Turkey in the summer, a bit like your balding colleague at work who returns from that mysterious time off sick with a full head of hair and jackmate teeth. While poor old Townsend, he has not been able to establish himself a spot in the Antalya Sport team. It's not been completely hopeless, but he's been pretty miserable, especially considering he had to wait a whole month for the club's transfer ban to be lifted so they could finally actually register him in the team. He probably spent the first 4 weeks in Turkey just eating cookies in the dark as the Turkish chiefs try to pretend he wasn't there. 34, Jordan Henderson. Absolute nightmare year. Lads, don't forget, Jordan Henderson was contracted to Liverpool until 2025. If he hadn't greedily jumped at that ridiculous Saudi wage, leaving without even a proper goodbye, then he could have bowed out of Anfield this summer, lifting his second Premier League title as captain. Sure, he probably spent the entire season on the bench, but so? The reward is a Premier League winner's medal and an actual title parade instead of, 5 years ago when, you got to celebrate by cracking open a Pepsi on the couch. I mean, come on, there's even the possibility of a 4th Champions League final of his career. And a possible second win? Is that not more fun than a mediocre year at Ajax? I mean, they finished 5th last season. His only game in England was a sobering 4-0 loss at Villa Park. And yeah, they're currently second, and I don't think his performances have been too bad, and he is the captain. Well, come on, his England career is toast, and he sacrificed a nailed-on extra Premier League winner's medal. And what would have been the most heroic of goodbyes? Cheered up by all 4 corners of an extended Anfield, after 14 glorious years of service, which would have been a miracle considering they tried to sell him after a year to Fulham. Honestly, there's a way to leave football clubs, and it's not like this. He's spoiled over 10 years of good work. Even financially speaking, he was on £190,000 a week at Liverpool, guaranteed until this summer. Yeah, he takes home 74k a week in Holland. Less money than what Connor Cody earns. Yowza! 35, Dayan Lovren. Remember Dayan Lovren? The self-proclaimed best defender in the world? Yeah, he's completely banished to the bench by Leon after last Christmas, losing his place in the team to Jake O'Brien. He moves to Greece with PAOK Thessaloniki and very quickly lost his place in the team there too. Just give it up, Dayan. 36, Willian. Willian has had such a tumultuous time since leaving Chelsea. First of all, he was utterly hopeless at Arsenal. He was then chased out of Brazil by angry Corinthians fans. Then he had a couple of good years at Fulham. He then joins Olympiacos in September after a mediocre end of the season with Fulham. 0 goals and 1 assist in 15 games after Christmas. But he then reproduces his horror Corinthians form in Greece because he was so bad, they ripped up his contract at the end of the year. And he's now unemployed. Yeah, that's a bad 2024. That's 3 out of 4 clubs since quitting Chelsea, where he's been so bad, they've actually had to ask him to leave. 37, Salvatore Sirigu. Poor Salvatore Sirigu. This must be embarrassing. Yes, he has a name that sounds like he belongs to the Pirates of the Caribbean, but he is a goalkeeping veteran who deserves respect. Someone who spent 6 years at Moneybags PSG, don't forget. And he has 28 Italy caps. But the man needs to retire. Because after joining Nice in the summer of 2023, replacing Kasper Schmeichel, he quits them in mid-January after they refused to let him play. He joins Fatih Karagümrük in Turkey, where he did play. But come on, he only kept 2 clean sheets in 17 games, and then scores himself a summer move back to his beloved Palermo. 13 years after leaving them for PSG. I mean, he probably expected to be their #1 in Serie B, right? This was like when Gianluigi Buffon went back to Parma, right? Nah, he's still waiting to play a single match for them in Serie B. Being kept out of the team by 21-year-old Sebastian De Planches, a former AC Milan prodigy talent. So yeah, he's only played 1 game this season. A 5-0 defeat to Napoli in the Cup. Awful. 38, Olivier Giroud. I'm surprised as you to see Olivier Giroud in this list because this is a man who has been elite after his 30th birthday. This French Benjamin Button centre forward has been getting better the more he ages. I mean, since leaving Arsenal in his early 30s, he's since won a Champions League, a World Cup, the Europa League, Serie A, and cracked in nearly 50 goals for the great AC Milan, but his 2024 has been weak. Look, his 7 goals in the second half of last season was okay for Milan, but the fact he then rocked up in America in September, and he's still waiting for his first MLS goal for Los Angeles, 0 goals in 10 MLS matches. Literally none in the MLS. And he starts every game. I mean, considering Ibrahimovic ripped up that league at his age, then this is pretty embarrassing, no? 39, Steve Mandanda. Yeah, Steve Mandanda is another goalie who needs to hang up the gloves. Because, come on, this fella. At Crystal Palace flop with nearly 40 French caps. Look at how many goals he's been conceding with Rennes, and he's just been replaced by Bryce Samba. Yikes. 40, Andres Iniesta. If ever there was a way for a football legend to finish his career, this is not it. Andres Iniesta is one of the greatest footballers of all time, but part of me thinks he should have just retired as a one-club Barcelona man 6 years ago, because since then, he's gone on to spend 5 years in lowly mid-table Japanese football. He then chose to spend 2024 in the UAE with Emirates Club. Yes, this is the final season of this man's glorious career, where he won everything there is to win. I mean, come on, he scored a winning goal for Spain in the World Cup final. He's a legend. But you know what the final season of this man's unbelievable career is? Relegation. This is one of the final central midfielders of all time, and yet he starts the season as a centre forward up front with old Barca buddy Paco Alcácer. He was flung back into the defensive midfield in the second half of the season after everyone realised he wasn't a striker at 40, but the sight of this former Ballon d'Or contender getting ripped apart in midfield in a 7-1 defeat at Al Wasl, or how about the 8-0 aggregate defeat to Al Wada, where he was dragged off at halftime on both legs? No wonder he retired in October, because this was a hopelessly depressing way to bow out. I mean, he narrowly escaped the first relegation of his career in Japan, but I finally caught him in the UAE. Relegated in his last ever football match. Oh, someone get him on a Soccer 8 pitch quick. Get him to nutmeg Tommy Fury or to dribble past someone from JLS just to wash the stink of that relegation off his bones. Anyway, that's the review. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. What do you think? Who had the worst year of every age in the comment section? Let me know. Enjoy the video. Don't forget to go like, share, as always. I'll talk to you in a while.